What is going on, investors? Hopefully, you guys are having a great day out there. That is right. It is Friday, and it is time for the FAANG Stock Recap Show here on the Investor Channel, where every Friday we recap all the news of the week and the charts of the major FAANG stocks, plus Microsoft and Tesla. We don't waste your time. We're going to kick things off like we always do with Facebook. Start of the week at $362 per share. End of the week, basically right there at $363 per share. Not a lot of news out of Facebook this week, but we did get that SoftBank unloaded about 4 billion shares of many of the FAANG stocks, including about 3.1 billion shares of Facebook, about 1 billion shares of Microsoft, about 500,000 shares of Alphabet, and about 382 million shares of Netflix. Amazon's stake also went down from 6.2 billion down to 5.6 billion. Obviously, they still hold massive amounts of these stocks, but could just be profit taking. When we take a look at the stock charts on these stocks here in a minute, I tell you what, a lot of them are stretched from a valuation perspective and from a chart perspective as well. We'll talk about that more here in a second. Now, one of the stocks that we were thinking was maybe going to break out this week, not a major breakout, but is pushing up that way. That is Apple. Started the week at 145, ended the week at 149. It wasn't like a booming stock market week either. It's kind of flat, sometimes down a little bit. So Apple is, from a chart perspective, technical perspective, is holding up. Now, we do have some fundamental news heading into Apple. They are seeking to ensure that the iPhone privacy in this child fight that we talked about here on the last show, where if you upload photos to iCloud, that Apple is going to potentially scan these photos for potentially dangerous photos of children and things like that. And I think we all agreed here on the show that we want to do everything we possibly can to stop. I mean, it's ridiculous. Anybody out there that's a father like myself certainly can understand these things. Now, here's the deal, though. Is where does this end? And Apple kind of admitted it today. So they had one of their engineers come out and say, hey, we could have rolled this out a little bit better. We could have explained it a little bit better, but it just doesn't sound like they're going to walk this back. And I brought up the extreme example. I think it was down in Bakersfield, California. There was actually a real tragic event, and on the scene was an Apple phone. People actually lost their lives during that event, and one of the suspects had an Apple phone that they recovered, and Apple wouldn't unlock it. And now they're going to go scan through your photos, guilty or not. And I think that's really the problem a lot of people are having with Apple, is now we're kind of proactively looking for a crime instead of Apple had a crime right there in front of them and they wouldn't unlock the phone. And now they're going to go proactively looking for crimes. I think it has some people concerned a little bit. So we'll see what happens with that one. I can imagine that one is going to court. And look, I don't know how a court would rule on that, but I'd be really, really interested to see how the court would rule on that type of case. Now, Apple and Google's app stores are in the crosshairs of a new House bill. This also is a Senate bill. I thought this was interesting. So a bipartisan team of lawmakers in the House of Representatives and in the Senate introduced similar type bills to quote unquote end the app store dominance. And so obviously a company like Spotify, thought this was interesting. So you got companies out there like Spotify, probably even Netflix to a certain degree, where they're having to pay the app store a certain tax or a certain fee every time somebody pays. And it's kind of frustrating for a company like Spotify that has such a good brand and has a recurring bill, and they constantly have to feed money to Apple just for the privilege of that person happening to use an iPhone. And so Spotify came out with just glowing and just loving. You can imagine how much money Spotify has donated to these representatives to get a bill like this introduced. We'll see what happens with this. And honestly, I think it would be negative to a certain degree for Apple. I wouldn't necessarily think their stocks would just absolutely get destroyed. What I actually think is interesting is if you can think about companies like Spotify, maybe some of the game companies, any company that has where a big portion of their revenue or almost all their revenue flows through an app store. I tell you what, you erase this tax, the 30% to 10% tax that Apple and Google charge these developers. I tell you what, that would be incredibly bullish for those stocks. Now, I am closing windows. I'm on a tethered internet connection. It's an absolute, my light is out. It's an absolute disaster over here at the Investor Channel. We'll see if we can get this video uploaded to you. Apple is betting on camera upgrades to fuel its iPhone 13 sale. So iPhone 13, August, September, we're looking for a September launch, although last year, due to the virus and supply chain stuff, that event was pushed back to October. But Apple likes to introduce their new phones this time every year, right before the fourth quarter, so they can get you to buy these things for the fourth quarter for gifts and those types of things. It doesn't look like to me, I've seen enough of the previews on these phones. There's no official releases on these phones, but there's enough rumors and stuff like that out there that basically you're going to get a high-res video format. It's going to allow you to take photos and allow you or take video and blur the back out just like you can with like a DSLR camera and those types of things. It'll have a little bit faster processor. This is an incremental upgrade. The dimensions of the phone are expected to be the same, and the 5.4-inch like iPhone mini is expected to be retired simply because people were not buying it. So again, it's one of those iPhone 13s or, X years where it's not really that big of an upgrade. So we'll see how Wall Street happens to handle that once those new phones come out. Now, Apple is reportedly talking to Korean manufacturers for Apple Car. Yeah, that's right. We still got the Apple Car. It is still believed that the Apple electric car will come one day, and it more than likely will be through a very, very, very deep partnership with somebody, my guess, somebody in Korea. You're looking at an LG Electronics, you're looking at SK Innovations. I've seen Hyundai, Kia, those types of manufacturers thrown around as well. We'll see what happens with Apple. Moving on to Amazon, one of my most favorite stocks. Started the week at 3,330, ended the week at 3,300. Talk about what this means from Amazon from a technical perspective. In my IRA account, I'm already mega overweight Amazon, but my sons are super young. I'd like to pick up some shares. So we'll talk about if this means, is it a buying opportunity for Amazon down another 2% this week? We know from a technical perspective, it has been under pressure. Amazon opens a new Kentucky air hub and sets a big Florida expansion. This is fantastic. If you're a seller like me on Amazon, you know that the logistics have gotten way better. I remember this time last year, I was shipping stuff out myself because the Amazon warehouses were just bogged down. The shipping was slow out of them. Shipping was slow everywhere, but out of the Amazon warehouses, it's gotten back a little bit. We're not seeing that one-day Prime or that 24-hour Prime delivery yet, and I think we're still a ways away from that, but expanding new air hubs, expanding new fulfillment centers, especially in major markets like Florida, certainly will help things for that. Now, Microsoft is protesting a $10 billion government cloud contract won by Amazon, and no, this is not the Jedi contract. This is a different contract. This is another exact same value. Microsoft and Amazon were both fighting for this contract, and Amazon won it, and Microsoft is contesting it. Now, what I thought was interesting, and as an analyst said, it's actually not uncommon for these government contracted services to be protested after they're awarded. I thought that was interesting that he said that. I honestly didn't know that. I thought once it was awarded, that was it. But no, it sounds like it's common that they're protested, but that these are like defense and national security type contracts. And the infighting between Amazon and Microsoft are holding these projects up, which holds, services that you and I, the taxpayer, are paying for. And hopefully that help protect our country and our citizens and our troops and men and women that are serving. And these types of bickering and fighting over $10 billion, which is a lot of money, but to Microsoft and Amazon is like, $10,000 to the average person. So maybe they should move on with these things and get to work. Amazon will pay for damages for dangerous products sold by third-party merchants. So if you sell products on Amazon like I do, you are supposed to have insurance. I tell you, you're supposed to have insurance, I think, if you have over $10,000 a month in sales. Well, they don't ever check. I tell you what, I know a lot of sellers that don't. I personally have insurance as well. Not that I think I would use it. It's not very expensive, so it's worth having just in case. But now Amazon, it appears like they're going to crack down a little bit more on that. Amazon will also cover claims up to $1,000. And so I think that should lower your premiums if you're a seller like me, since Amazon is going to take on the vast majority of claims on that. Now, moving on to Netflix, started the week at $520, melted up, or actually melted sideways to $515. The chart on Netflix is looking almost exactly like Amazon, and so we'll talk about that here in a second. Not a lot of news out of Netflix. I know a lot of people want to maybe add a different N stock into this, maybe an Nvidia. Me personally, I have my own version of FAANG, which includes Nike. We'll see about that. We'll see. I haven't made a final decision on that. We'll see if we decide to. I don't think we would kick out Netflix, but Netflix just doesn't have a lot of news. And when they do make news, obviously we would talk about it. Moving on to Google. Guess what, guys? Look, my power is out here and my internet is not working, but Google stock continues to go up, and the broken record that we have playing here in the Investor Channel office continues to play Google going up, Google going up. Start of the week at 2,707. This is just remarkable. It's a $1.83 trillion company, and it's simply just been going up and up like you wake up out of bed every week. Now sitting at $2,754. It's been like the most easy trade you possibly could have made in your entire life. Google employees moving to home work may face pay cuts. And this made news, but it makes a lot of sense. I live out here in California. I just drove by Google's headquarters. I guess it was last Saturday. Okay, the difference in people, I don't know if a lot of people probably understand this, but where I live right now, my house right now I live in, is, it's probably like a $400,000 house, something like that. If I picked up this house and moved it to very close to Google headquarters, 20, 30 minutes within this headquarters, we're talking about a $4 or $5 million house. So when they talk about Google employees facing a pay cut, well, of course, okay, literally an hour and a half away, house prices are 10 times less, maybe even more. And that's not it, okay? Gas, everything else is more expensive. Just to park your car in San Francisco or where these offices are located is so expensive. And so it makes a lot of sense. And if I was a Google employee, I would gladly take a pay cut and get the heck out of San Francisco. Not that I think it's a terrible city. It's just so expensive there. And you get the exact same experience here in California for half the price, a tenth of the price, like an hour away. That's just my opinion. Moving on to Microsoft, start of the week at 280. If I was a single guy, though, probably would rather be in San Francisco, but you got a family and things like that. You come out here to Central California, can't beat it. Moving on to Microsoft, start of the week at 289. This one's melting up too. This one's starting to look like Google. Okay, when we got a $2.15 trillion market cap on this one, end of the week at $292 on Microsoft. And another broken record here on the Investor Channel. Microsoft is going to buy Peer 5, which is to enhance the live video streaming in Teams. It's going to allow them to deliver optimized and high quality and secure live video streaming to the Teams platform, which is kind of like a Slack or something like that, or like even like a kind of a Zoom product. And so this is pretty cool. We've been talking about it here on the Investor Channel, that Microsoft, all these companies, look, all these companies outside of maybe Tesla are not going to be allowed from a regulatory perspective to do a big acquisition. It's just simply the climate in Washington on both sides of the aisle just simply are not going to allow Microsoft to do a big acquisition. I love this strategy. Every week we're talking about them acquiring. I mean, these are probably like $100 million deals, tens of millions of dollar deals. And so they're small from a dollar standpoint, but they really tie in a lot of things to Microsoft. And I really love that strategy by Microsoft. If you're handcuffed by the United States government, well, there's other things you could be doing with your cash, and I love that Microsoft is deploying it in these ways. Moving on to Tesla, start of the week at $300. No, that's not right. I was going to say $300 on Tesla. Holy crap. You guys have got to be, I'd be jumping up and down right now. No, $710 on Tesla. End of the week at about $717. We talked about this from a technical perspective as well. Can we pop up with Tesla? I would say Tesla and Apple were both there on the, on the borderline where they could really have a nice pop. We'll see what happens from a technical perspective. I love Elon Musk. This guy says he hopes to begin production at Berlin Gigafactory in October. So this is good. This is especially good for cars in Europe and things like that, where Tesla is trying to sell even more cars. What I thought was his quote was fantastic here. So this is a quote by Elon Musk. He says, quote, "Sometimes one has the impression that inventing something new is technologically easier than dismantling bureaucracy in Germany." And so I just love his honesty. And so obviously the Gigafactory in Germany has gone through just tons of, and they still need some kind of final approval, just a bunch of red tape. But here's the thing, that is kind of a moat around your business. Think about all the hoops that Tesla had to go through to open this Gigafactory in Berlin. Once they cross all those hurdles, think about all the other little EV companies that everybody compares to Tesla. Well, they can't compare to that, okay? And so very, very, very smart move, and we'll see how that works out for Tesla. Now, a Tesla supplier and the world's biggest EV battery maker is raising $9 billion to expand. So this is an overseas, a Chinese company, I believe. They're raising $9 billion through a private placement. They also supply batteries to XPeng, Li Auto, and Mercedes-Benz and NIO. And so just a gigantic battery a battery maker. And it expects that they will get an investment. That's certainly good for the EV space and certainly good for Tesla as well. Now, Tesla's Elon Musk details problematic chip supply to Cathie Wood. I think we all know about the chip supplies. You can look at the deliveries of the Model S and the Model X, the premium models of Tesla's vehicles, and they're just falling off a cliff, okay? And it's because they just simply don't have the chips for them. But what I thought was interesting was that Elon Musk retweeted a Cathie Wood tweet that says that Tesla seems to understand that China wants local champions to dominate electric vehicle sales. So that's an XPeng, that's a Li Auto, that's a NIO. But that China is pleased that Tesla is exporting from China high-quality EVs and high-end vehicles. So the fact that China wants its homegrown companies, NIO, Li Auto, XPeng, all the other ones there in China, they obviously want them to dominate. And look, we don't need to argue with what China wants to do. It's its own country. They can do what they want, in my opinion. Whether or not everybody needs to agree with that, that's up for you to decide. Tesla has gotten into that market and has broken into that market, but they are a United States-based company. But the fact that they are exporting lots of their vehicles is very interesting, and that ties into our previous story where I talked about Gigafactory Berlin. And one of the reasons why Gigafactory Berlin is very interesting is it allows Tesla deeper integration into that European market. Take a look at this. I wanted to show you that Tesla in the most recent month delivered 32,968 vehicles. They're dominating. Take a look at this. Li Auto, 8,500 cars. XPeng, 8,000 cars. NIO, just south of 8,000 cars. And take a look, these black lines on here, this is everything Tesla has shipped to the local market. And the pink bar is what Tesla has exported. So you're seeing that Tesla, especially in July, you're seeing that Tesla is exporting and making and selling as many cars to the Chinese as the locals are in terms of the local competition, Li Auto, XPeng, NIO, and those. So, man, it's just fantastic what Tesla is doing here. And certainly any kind of roadblock thrown up by China will be a problem for Tesla stock. So that is a risk, but at the same time, it's a huge tailwind because they are having massive success, not only selling Teslas to Chinese, but also making them there in China and exporting them in other parts of the world. Now, Tesla pushes back Cybertruck deliveries to 2022. Oh no. No, I'm on a pre-order for one of these Cybertrucks. I actually got an offer. I have a Mercedes SUV. I got an offer to buy that for more than what I owe on the lease. Believe that or not, I owe 50 some odd thousand left on my lease, and I got an offer for like 2,000, and this was like just unsolicited. So I bet I could go in there. It's incredible what's going on with the used car market, and it's unfortunate that Tesla is kind of caught up on this, and they can't launch this Cybertruck because this Cybertruck looks to me like an incredible product. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a big needle mover in terms of their earnings, their revenues. It will move it a little bit, but not a big needle mover. But it's an exciting product, and I like companies like Tesla. Tesla could play it super safe and just put out your, plain vanilla truck. But no, they really push the envelope on design and all that, and I love that. That's why we love the FAANG stocks, is because a lot of them, not all of them, Apple to a certain degree, maybe even Microsoft, a little more buttoned up than the other ones. But I like Tesla because they are willing to take those risks. Now, from a technical perspective, Facebook's locked in this uptrend. We have dipped down below. I mean, I think you can adjust this line. I haven't adjusted it since last week. I think we're a little bit steeper uptrend, but we're still in this uptrend, and this uptrend is intact until it's not. You're really looking, and what do I mean by that? I often say that this uptrend is intact until it's not. Same thing with Google, same thing with a lot of these stocks, okay? The uptrend breaks when you break below the previous lows, okay? So you got a low, a higher low, higher low, higher low, all the way up. And it really would need to break below 349. The stock's at 363, okay? And it still wouldn't be like confirmation. You come all the way down here to 347, 346, maybe you peak through these lows. It could just be the market kind of testing this uptrend, and then it just resumes itself, okay? And so the uptrend's intact until it is not over at Facebook. Now, moving on to Apple, this thing is broken above the highs. We talked about this last week, so I put this line in last week. I don't move these lines around. I like to move them around once we bring them on the air so you can kind of show you what happened kind of week over week. From a technical perspective on these stocks, we talked about how Apple needed to we thought it was going to bounce right here at 145, and it did. We got a bounce up here to 148, but we still need to get above these highs at 150. So if Apple trades above 150 next week, so we're looking for candles right above where we're at. I mean, like literally $1 or $2 above where we're at. You start getting that, and then yeah, you can go back to this chart in Facebook and look what happens when you break above the highs. You often come back and retest. We've already done that with Apple. We've broken above the highs, came back and retest. The highs were 145. We broke to 150, came back, retest 145. Now we're bouncing again. We'll see if we can push this up, because if the momentum can get behind Apple stock, I tell you what, it'd be behind the whole market. But Apple stock could run, my guess, 5, 10, 15% over the course of a month, because we saw that with a lot of these stocks as well. Now, Amazon's in a different spot. We went over our previous highs, and then we reported earnings that the street did not like, and we gapped down, and we're sitting right on an area of support. You see, really since the end of last month, so for basically 2 weeks, we've sat here at about $3,300 on Amazon stocks. Yeah, it's popped up a little bit, but basically that's where it's at. That is a level of support. If Amazon were to break below this area of support down below closer to $3,200 or $3,100 per share, those are buying, I'm sorry, those are straight buying opportunities for Amazon. Anywhere down here south of $3,200 per share, I will be buying this stock, not for me personally, but for my sons who have a very long holding period. We'll buy fractional shares for them. Anything below 3,200, in my opinion, buying opportunity for Amazon. Netflix, similar story to Amazon, okay? We came up here, broke down after hours, but we're still, honestly, we're kind of working our way up here. We just have not been able to break above 520 on this one. You break above 520 on them, and I tell you what, 540, 560 back in play. If for some reason we were to break below about 510, 507 on this one, the lower end of the range for Netflix is in play, anywhere between 480 and 500, in my opinion, buying opportunity for that stock as well. Google, not a lot to see here, guys. Just one of the biggest uptrends I've ever seen in a mega cap stock. And this has been intact since October, almost a year. I mean, it's just unbelievable. This thing has it literally, since October, you can maybe even date this back to September of last year. We're literally like a month away from Google just continuing to go up. And again, this uptrend is intact until you take out the previous lows, which are like down here at $2,400 per share. We're like $2,750 per share. It's just unbelievable. There's not a whole lot else I can say here. It's just literally the biggest uptrend I might have ever seen in a mega cap stock, especially over the last couple years especially. We're seeing a similar formation here with Microsoft. Okay, we broke above the highs, retested. Who does that remind you of? Apple. Okay, we broke above the highs, retested the highs several times. In fact, for a month, we retested those highs. So every week, every week here on the show and probably in the thumbnail and on the title, I'm going to say Apple breakout coming. Understand, we could just hover here at 145. I would not be concerned at all. If we can hold this level with Apple at 145, hold it, 145, 145, 145. Wouldn't necessarily do anything, okay? Because look at right here with Microsoft, okay? We did the exact same thing. The highs were 230. We broke up to 245, came back to 230, and hung out there for literally a month. A month of trading, we were between 230 and 240 on this stock. So it just hung out there. And then, but once you break above, look at the momentum. We went from 240 all the way up to 290. That's why we look for these breakouts. It's not that we're like, this is the only reason why we're looking for the breakouts, because when they break out, these things can go $40, $50 per share. We saw it with Facebook as well. This thing went from 300 to 363. Guys, that's a 20% gain, okay? The S&P averages, I think, a 10% return. Oh, you got 20% in a couple weeks with Facebook. That's why we look for these breakouts. That's why we're really paying close attention to Apple, because take a look, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, those companies show you when these things break up, they tend to want to continue to run. Now, the last stock on our list, I'm on a tethered internet connection, so my apologies that this is taking so long, but I won't waste a lot of your time here. We talked about with Tesla, we had to get above these highs at 700, and we're basically sitting right there, okay? Now, we've gotten above them, and again, the exact same story is true with Apple in particular. Is we've broken above here. It doesn't matter if we just stay here. It would be very, very bearish or somewhat bearish if we broke below that $700 level. Then it just shows you that this was, now this $700 level, instead of being support, it actually acts as resistance on the way back up, because all these buyers up here are now thinking, oh crap, now I've lost money. Come back to break even. They end up selling. So we're looking for a push above at some point on Tesla as well. But look, we are now in what I would say is a shorter term uptrend. Okay. The stock is in the uptrend. A pullback a little bit, even below 700, wouldn't be concerning at all. You will have not broken through the lows here of 650. Now you break below 650, all bets are off. You're getting this thing at a much lower price. But this thing is in an uptrend. You're looking for a push. And the reason why we're monitoring this is because we can go from 700 to 750 all the way back up to the highs between 850 and 900. Guys, that's like over 150, even $200 per share. And this is something that can happen very, very quickly. And so we are monitoring Tesla and Apple, in my opinion, extraordinarily closely. We are looking at Amazon for a potential breakdown below. We're actually rooting for that, in my opinion. Look, I got a ton of Amazon shares. It's cool when my portfolio is worth more money. But believe me, I'd rather buy things on sale. Amazon, anywhere between 29 and 3,100, even 3,200 if you want to really step in there. Those are buying opportunities, and we'll see if we're getting those opportunities next week. Guys, hopefully we got our internet next week. Hopefully we get the lights turned back on over here at the Investor Channel, and hopefully you guys have a great week. Thank you very much for everybody's support. We're over 90,000 subscribers here on the Investor Channel. When my friends and family look at that, they literally cannot believe it, and I can't either. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Be safe, have fun, and we'll see you again next week. Good luck with your investments.